I invite you to listen to my original story. Hope you enjoy it. Please support with a like and subscription if you do. Chapter 1: Return and Disappearance. My name is Nate Blackwood, former EOD specialist with the 3rd Ranger Battalion. I'm 36 years old. My past is defined by the IEDs buried in Afghanistan's dust. My present consists of nightmares and prescription bottles. My future was an empty void. Or at least it was until yesterday, when my younger brother Liam vanished during his honeymoon in the Cascade Mountains. His wife Sophia is hysterical, the police indifferent, and my hands, once steady enough to disarm the most complex explosive devices, are helpless against the trap I can feel closing around us all. Now I stand in my brother's apartment, staring at fresh paint on the wall that's concealing traces of blood. What if Liam didn't fall into a ravine? What if his wife is only pretending? The further you get from war, the louder the gunshots echo in your head. Someone told me that after my first deployment and now, 15 years and 4 unit transfers later, I understand the wisdom behind those words. The dust of Kandahar still grinds between my teeth as I cross the threshold of my apartment in the outskirts of Raven Point, a place I haven't called home in almost a year. The key turns reluctantly, the lock dried out like everything else here. The air inside is stale, carrying the scent of abandonment, dust, and forgotten promises. On the coffee table sits a mug with fossilized coffee grounds. I remember drinking from it before my last departure, checking my watch, afraid of missing my flight. It's unsettling to feel like a stranger in your own home. I drop my rucksack by the door and immediately throw open the windows. The crisp autumn air invades the room, making me shiver. Even on the drive from the airport, I noticed that summer had died during my absence. So it's autumn now, one of many I've failed to witness. The blinking red light on my answering machine draws my eye like a laser sight. 7 new messages. Mom's birthday wishes, which I missed. A reminder from the bank about an overdue mortgage payment. A sales pitch. Another request for an interview for a book about modern warfare. They can't seem to understand that stories about EOD specialists only appeal to those who have never seen limbs scattered across desert sand. The 5th message hits me harder than a bullet to body armor. Nate, it's Sophia. Liam is missing. 3 days ago in the mountains, the police. They're saying, "Oh God, please call me as soon as you can." Her voice trembles, breaking with sobs, but something about it unsettles me. Her words are too precise for someone in hysterics, as if reading from a rehearsed script. Her 2nd message, recorded yesterday, sounds calmer. "Nate, I don't know if you got my call. They still haven't found Liam and the cops are saying that he probably fell into a ravine during a hike. I don't know what to do. Please come." I set down my keys, which I've been clutching this entire time, and sink heavily onto the couch. The clock on the wall shows 10:30 in the evening, the dark hour when ghosts crawl from the depths of consciousness. Mine are already waiting, the 4 I couldn't save. The boy with water jugs, the woman with fruit, the old man on the bicycle, and Sergeant Hayes. I know sleep won't come tonight. I turn a whiskey bottle in my hands, left over from my last leave, and take a swig directly from the neck. The liquid burns my throat, a reminder that I'm still alive. Then I pull out the orange prescription bottle from my jacket pocket, pills that promise to banish nightmares for at least a few hours. "Do not mix with alcohol," warns the label. "Whiskey isn't alcohol," I tell the empty room. "It's medicine, just more honest." I swallow a pill, chase it with another gulp of whiskey, and close my eyes. Liam, my younger brother, my last chance at redemption. Thoughts tangle, overlapping like shadows from an IED blast. By 3 in the morning, I'm still awake. Pale light from the street lamps filters through the window. Memories of my brother and the war blend in my consciousness. One moment I see Liam smiling with his college diploma. The next, Sergeant Hayes's body mangled by an explosion. That time, I was just seconds too late. By dawn, my decision is made. I dial Sophia's number. "Nate," Her voice sounds sleepy, but there's none of the disorientation I'd expect from someone who lost her husband just days ago. "You're back, thank God. Can you come over today?" "I'm on my way," I reply curtly, studying my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Sunken eyes, stubble gray at the temples that wasn't there 6 months ago. "What happened, Sophia? Just the facts in order." "I can't talk on the phone." Her voice drops to a whisper. "Just come, please, you know the address." I do know it. A modest house in the suburbs that Liam bought right after the wedding. White fence, two-car garage, manicured lawn. A perfect picture from a glossy magazine about domestic bliss. A life I've never had. The pills didn't help. On the drive over, my ghosts sit beside me in the passenger seat, watching me with unblinking eyes. I turn up the radio to drown out their silent accusations. Music, news, weather forecast, everything blends into white noise that fails to reach my consciousness. Aye. Sophia opens the door before I can ring the bell, as if she's been waiting behind it all this time. She's wearing a simple black dress, her hair gathered in a casual bun, traces of tears on her face. Perfect traces, makeup slightly smeared but not enough to look disheveled. She always knew how to make an impression. "Nate," she throws herself into my arms, enveloping me in the scent of expensive perfume. "I'm so glad you came." I awkwardly return her embrace, feeling the fragility of her shoulders beneath the thin fabric of her dress. Sophia seems sincere, but something prevents me from relaxing. Perhaps it's professional paranoia. When you spend every day looking for hidden traps, you start seeing them even where they don't exist. The house looks immaculate, too immaculate for a dwelling where tragedy has struck. Not a single item out of place. The air smells of lemon freshener, fresh flowers on the coffee table. "What happened?" I ask when we settle in the living room. Sophia sits across from me, nervously twisting her wedding ring. "We went to the mountains last week. Liam had been wanting to show me the waterfalls in the northern part of the Cascade Range." She takes a shaky breath. "Everything was perfect. We rented a small cabin at the foot of the mountains, went hiking, enjoyed nature. And then She falters, covering her mouth with her hand as if holding back sobs. "3 days ago, Liam said he wanted to take a short hike alone. A kind of meditation, you know. Said sometimes he needed to be by himself. Promised to be back by lunch." "What time did he leave?" I ask, noticing how her fingers continue to twist the ring. "Early morning, around 6, she glances away, then corrects herself. "Actually, no, it was later, maybe around 9. Yes, that's right, after breakfast, so around 9. First discrepancy. People usually remember such details clearly, especially when connected to tragedy. "And then, when he didn't return by lunch, I wasn't too worried. Liam liked, she swallows hard, to disappear for entire days. But when it got dark, I became concerned and called the rescue service. They organized a search, but—" Sophia breaks down, covering her face with her hands. Tears flow between her fingers, leaving dark mascara tracks on her flawlessly pale cheeks. I wait for her to compose herself, surveying the room. Photos in frames, Liam and Sophia on their wedding day, against an ocean backdrop in a restaurant. In all the pictures, she looks at him adoringly, sincerely. "I'm sorry," she wipes her tears with the back of her hand. "It still hurts so much." "What did the police say?" I ask, trying to soften my voice. Interrogation techniques ingrained after years of service aren't appropriate now. "They combed the entire area, even with dogs. They found his tracks on one of the trails leading to North Ravine. The trail ended right at the edge. They think he might have slipped, fallen down. The current there is strong, could have carried the body for miles." "And they stopped searching?" "Not completely. They said they'll continue checking the shores downstream, but the chances of finding him alive are practically zero." She starts crying again, quieter this time, as if grief is gradually draining from her with each tear. I try to picture Liam at the edge of a cliff. My brother who's been afraid of heights since childhood, who turned pale even on a Ferris wheel. Liam, approaching the very edge of a ravine. Impossible. Can you give me the sheriff's contact information? I ask, taking out my phone. Sophia provides a name and number, which I immediately record. But what are you planning to do, Nate? There's something new in her voice. Anxiety, fear. Talk to him, I shrug. I might have questions you didn't ask. You don't think this was an accident? She watches me intently, and for a moment I feel like there's something else behind the mask of grief. Calculation. Liam was afraid of heights, I say, observing her reaction. Since childhood. She looks away. He was working on that. Even took up rock climbing last year to overcome his fear. Rock climbing. First I've heard of it. Sure, my brother and I haven't been in close contact these past few years, but he would have mentioned such a significant change. May I look through his things? I ask, standing up. There might be something that could help understand where he was headed. Sophia freezes for a second, then nods. Of course. His office is upstairs, first door on the right. I'll make some coffee. She hurries to the kitchen, and I slowly ascend the stairs, listening to the sounds of the house. The floorboards creak faintly under my feet, water drips somewhere. Normal sounds of an inhabited house, but to me they seem like false notes in a carefully orchestrated symphony. Aye. The sheriff of Cascade County was named Travis Cooper. Judging by his voice, he was well past 60 and had spent most of those years smoking at least a pack a day. His hoarse baritone seemed to crawl out of the phone receiver along with cigarette smoke. Mr. Blackwood, I understand your concern, but we've done everything possible, he was saying when I called after a cursory inspection of Liam's office. I personally led the search. 40 people, including volunteers, combed every bush on that slope. And yet you didn't find a body. Silence, then a heavy sigh. North Ravine, Mr. Blackwood, isn't just a crack in the rock. It's a canyon more than 300 feet deep with a raging river below. If your brother fell in there, the chances of finding him, let's just say they're slim. Sheriff, tell me honestly, do you really believe this was an accident? More silence, then the sound of a lighter, the sheriff lighting up. Listen, son, his voice softened, almost paternal. I understand you need answers. In situations like this, everyone wants to find meaning, a reason. But sometimes accidents are just accidents. We have absolutely no grounds to suspect foul play. My brother has been afraid of heights since childhood. He would never approach the edge of a cliff. People change, Mr. Blackwood. Your sister-in-law mentioned that recently he was specifically working on overcoming his fears. Maybe he wanted to prove something important to himself. The same version again. As if rehearsed, I decided to approach from a different angle. I'd like to see the place where he was last seen. That's a 3-hour drive from here. Irritation crept into the sheriff's voice. And what do you hope to find there that my people didn't? I don't know, maybe nothing, but I have to try. Sheriff Cooper was silent for a moment, then unexpectedly agreed. All right, come to the station tomorrow. I'll give you a map and show you exactly where the searches were conducted. But I should warn you, this road will only prolong your pain. Sometimes it's better to let go. Let go, as if it were that simple. As if I haven't been trying to let go of the ghosts that follow me since the day my hands first touched a detonator. See you tomorrow, Sheriff, I said, ending the call. The station was a half-hour drive from Liam's house. An old brick building with an American flag on the facade and a cracked sign that read Cascade County Sheriff's Department. Inside it smelled of coffee, paper, and fatigue. I know this smell from any military headquarters. Sheriff Cooper turned out to be exactly as I'd imagined him from his voice. A tall, sinewy man with deep wrinkles on his tanned face and short-cropped gray hair. His hands, large, with protruding veins, rested on the desk, holding down a map of the area. Here's the hiking trail, his finger, yellowed from nicotine, moved along a winding line, the most popular one with markers along the entire route. Your brother was spotted here, about 9 miles from the base camp. Who saw him? A group of tourists from Seattle. A man matching your brother's description was walking north, toward the lookout point above the ravine. What time was this? Around 11 in the morning. The sheriff gave me a quick glance. They remembered clearly because they were about to stop for lunch. And then, the trail goes cold. We found the prints of his boots on the ground near the lookout point. The tracks lead right to the edge and stop there. I studied the map, noting details that might escape the attention of an ordinary person. The distance from the base camp to the site of Liam's last appearance, the terrain, alternative routes. Are there other trails he could have chosen? The sheriff nodded. Several, but they're all well marked and we checked each one. No traces. What about cameras? At the parking lot at the park entrance. Checked those too. He entered the park at 8:30 a.m. alone. He doesn't appear on any of the exit cameras. I continued studying the map when the sheriff unexpectedly asked, "Mr. Blackwood, have you ever considered that your brother might have done this intentionally?" I sharply raised my head, meeting his attentive gaze. "Suicide?" I asked. "No, never." "It's just," the sheriff hesitated, "we found something strange. Your brother withdrew a large sum from his account a week before his disappearance, $50,000 in cash." This was news. In Liam's office, I'd come across bank statements showing financial difficulties, but there was no mention of such a large withdrawal. Why would he need so much cash? The sheriff shrugged. "That's what I wondered too. His wife says she doesn't know, gambling debts, or—" He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Money for a new life, money to disappear. "Liam isn't the type to run from problems," I said firmly, though doubt had begun to seed itself inside me. How well did I really know my brother in recent years? "We all have blind spots when it comes to those closest to us, Mr. Blackwood," the sheriff remarked philosophically, rolling up the map. "But if it's any consolation, the case is officially classified as presumed accident." As I was about to leave, the sheriff called after me. "One more thing, Mr. Blackwood. Be careful with conspiracy theories. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one." I nodded, but inside I already knew there was nothing simple about this case. Leaving the station, I immediately felt like I was being watched. Professional paranoia, perhaps, but the shadow that flitted behind a pickup truck parked across the street was very real. IV. Liam's office appeared ordinary. A desk by the window, a computer, bookshelves lined with volumes on psychology. My brother had always been interested in human nature. On the wall, framed photographs. Liam with college graduates where he taught neuropsychology. Liam and me fishing 5 years ago, both smiling, holding up trout. The last time we were truly close. On the desk, the characteristic disorder of creative people. Papers, notes, pencils, a mug with dried coffee grounds, a twin to the one I found in my apartment. Searching through the documents, I came across a folder with bank statements. Strange that it was lying in plain sight. Or not strange. Maybe Sophia wanted me to find it. The statements painted a grim picture. Over the past 6 months, Liam's financial situation had deteriorated dramatically. Regular withdrawals of large sums, credit cards at their limits, 3 loans from dubious financial organizations at predatory interest rates. What happened to my brother? Gambling, drugs. Liam had never shown inclination toward either. I continued searching but found nothing else of interest. The computer's file storage system required a password I didn't know. The desk drawers contained only stationery utility bills, nothing noteworthy. Leaving the office, I noticed the bedroom door was ajar. Sophia was still downstairs. I could hear her talking on the phone, her voice lowered to a whisper. I quietly entered the room. The bedroom looked strange, like a set in a theater where everything is arranged to create a specific impression. The bed perfectly made, not a speck of dust on the nightstands, the same lemon freshener scent as downstairs. I slowly circled the room, listening to my intuition which had saved my life so many times. Something was off, something. The wall near the window caught my attention. Fresh paint, slightly different in shade from the other walls. I moved closer, ran my fingers over the surface. Smooth, recently dried. Acting on a sudden impulse, I took out the pocket knife I always carried and carefully lifted the paint in the farthest corner, where a defect would be least noticeable. Under the layer of paint I found another, darker one, and beneath that, I pried away a bit more, expanding the area. Dark brown stains on the plaster. Blood. Old, darkened, but definitely blood. My heart began to race. I carefully masked the traces of my investigation and moved away from the wall just as the door opened, and Sophia entered. "What are you doing, Nate?" There was tension in her voice that she tried to hide behind a smile. "Thought about hanging a photo of Liam." I pointed to the wall opposite the one I'd been examining. "The one where we're fishing." "Oh," she relaxed. "Good idea. I just brought you coffee, and the police called, said you can pick up Liam's things that were in his backpack. They're at the station." I nodded, accepting the cup. The coffee was too hot, as if she just brewed it, but the phone conversation I'd overheard lasted at least 10 minutes. A small detail, but another discrepancy. "Thanks," I took a sip. "The sheriff showed me the map of where Liam disappeared. Would you like to go there with me tomorrow?" She flinched, barely perceptibly, but I caught it. I don't think I can. It's too painful seeing that place." "Of course," I nodded understandingly. "You've been through a lot." Something like relief flickered in her eyes. "Can I stay with you for a couple of days?" I asked. "I don't want to leave you alone at a time like this." Now anxiety showed in her gaze. "You shouldn't, Nate. I need to be alone to process all this. Besides, my mother is coming tomorrow." Another lie. As far as I knew, Sophia didn't have a mother. At the wedding, only her father was present, and he left immediately after the ceremony. "If you say so," I didn't insist. "Then I'll go to a motel." "Yes, that would be better." She was clearly relieved. "I'll call if there's any news." Leaving my brother's house, I could feel Sophia's gaze burning into my back. Getting into my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Inside sat a man whose face I couldn't make out behind the tinted windows, but I would have bet my life he was watching the house. The Harbor View Motel was on the outskirts of town, a typical roadside flophouse with a tattered neon sign and a perpetually drunk desk clerk. I took a room on the first floor with a view of the parking lot, an old habit of always having an escape route. As soon as the door closed behind me, I took out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in almost a year. "Dominic Torres," answered a gruff voice after the third ring. "Dom, it's Nate Blackwood." A pause, then a chuckle. "You son of a bitch. I thought you died somewhere in the sandbox." Almost, I allowed myself a weak smile. "How are you?" "Getting by. Tracking unfaithful husbands and insurance fraudsters. Boring life compared to our adventures." Dominic Torres, my former comrade in arms, now a private detective in Seattle. 40 years old, with the look of a man who's seen hell and the ability to find information where others see only noise. "I need your help, Dom." The laughter cut short. "What happened?" I told him everything. Liam's disappearance, the inconsistencies in Sophia's story, blood traces on the wall, my brother's financial problems. With each word, Dom's voice grew more serious. "Dom, something's not right here. Fresh paint concealing blood, a large sum withdrawn from the account, and the sheriff closing the case too hastily." "You think your brother is dead?" I was silent for a moment, then answered. I don't know, possibly, or he staged his own disappearance, Dom finished for me. With 50,000 in cash, that's possible. But why would he do that? Liam loved his job, his students, and Sophia, at least I thought he did. You said he had financial problems. Maybe debts he couldn't repay, people threatening him. Dom reasoned like a professional. Maybe, I rubbed the bridge of my nose, fighting a headache. I just want to know what happened to him. I'll check his financial history, look for unusual transactions, loans. I have access to banking systems, but it will take time. How long? A day or two. Meanwhile, I suggest you pretend you've accepted the accident theory. If this is what I think it is, they'll be watching you. They? Those who have an interest in your brother's disappearance, Dom replied grimly. Be careful, Nate, and give me a number to track your brother's wife. I dictated Sophia's phone number to him. Thanks, Dom, I owe you. Shut up, he responded good-naturedly. You saved my ass in Kandahar. I'm still in your debt. After talking with Dom, I felt better. Not alone. Now there were two of us in this investigation. I laid out on the bed everything I'd managed to learn. Copies of Liam's bank statements, a map of the region where he disappeared, photos taken in his office and bedroom. But the picture remained incomplete, with huge gaps. The blood traces on the wall could mean anything. A fight, an accident, murder, and the 50,000 in cash. Who needed that kind of money? And why had Sophia been so happy when I refused to stay in the house? My head was splitting. I swallowed a painkiller and lay down on the bed, fully clothed. The ghosts, my faithful companions, sat beside me, patiently waiting for me to close my eyes. Not tonight, I muttered. I have more important things to do. But sleep still wouldn't come. Before my eyes flashed Liam's face, changing like in a kaleidoscope, a happy kid as I remembered him in childhood, a serious student with a diploma in hand, drunk to oblivion during my last leave 2 years ago, the first time I'd seen him like that, and finally, a frightened, cornered man handing over all his savings to someone unseen. VI. It was well after midnight when I returned to Liam's house. The black SUV was gone, no lights shone in the windows. Sophia must have been asleep. I didn't plan to break in. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed something important. Walking around the perimeter of the building, I discovered that the kitchen window was ajar, a weakness in the security system I could exploit if necessary. But first I decided to check the garage. Sophia's car, a red Maserati, too expensive for a college professor and his wife, was inside. Next to it, an empty space where Liam's Ford used to be. I carefully circled the Maserati, noting details. The car was covered with a thin layer of dust, as if it hadn't been used for several days. But this contradicted Sophia's statement about going to the police. On the front seat, a designer handbag, in the glove compartment, documents in the name of Olivia Kane. Olivia Kane, an alias, fake documents. I photographed the find on my phone and was about to leave when I heard the sound of an approaching car. Turning off my flashlight, I pressed against the garage wall, praying that the automatic door wouldn't start rising. Headlights illuminated the driveway. A black Mercedes, which I hadn't seen before, stopped in front of the house. Sophia stepped out, wearing a tight red dress, looking nothing like the grieving widow she had presented herself as earlier that day. Following her appeared a man in an expensive suit. Due to the distance and darkness, I couldn't make out his face, but even from here his military bearing was noticeable. Sophia said something to him, playfully placing her hand on his chest. The man leaned down and kissed her with such possessive confidence that there could be no doubt. This wasn't their first kiss. Everything fell into place. A lover, a secret relationship, a possible motive for. I didn't allow myself to complete the thought. So far, I had only suspicions, not evidence. They entered the house, and a moment later, a light came on upstairs in the bedroom. I looked around for a way to get closer. noticed a tree whose branches almost touched the window of the adjacent room. The solution was risky, but I saw no alternative. Climbing up the trunk, I carefully moved onto a thick branch hanging over the roof of an extension. From there, it was just a short reach to the window of Liam's office. The window, as I suspected, was unlocked. My brother always loved fresh air, even in winter. Slipping inside, I froze, listening. From the bedroom came muffled voices, Sophia's laughter, the sound of running water, someone taking a shower. I silently crept to the door leading to the hallway and listened. Now the voices were clearer. Sophia was talking to someone on the phone. "No, everything's going according to plan. He doesn't suspect anything. The first fight is in 2 days. Yes, I understand the risks." I tried to turn on the voice recorder on my phone, but in my haste, I stepped on a creaky floorboard. The room instantly fell silent. "Who's there?" came Sophia's voice. I jumped back into the shadows, praying she wouldn't decide to check the office. The bedroom door opened. A strip of light cut through the darkness of the hallway. Sophia peered out, listening for any sound. She was in a silk robe, her hair down, light makeup on her face creating the illusion of natural beauty. Seeing nothing suspicious, she closed the door, but I caught her next words. "We have a problem, his brother, former EOD. Yes, that one." My heart beat faster. They knew about me, knew my history, my profession, and considered me a problem. A male voice responded, but I couldn't make out the words. "No, he's not that stupid," Sophia continued. "But he's not smart enough to understand what his precious little brother got himself into." She paused, listening to the reply. "Fine. Tomorrow he's going to the mountains. That's our chance to deal with him. No witnesses." I froze, realizing I had just heard a plan for my murder. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into a picture that reeked of death. My brother wasn't in the ravine. He was either dead or involved in something so dangerous that he preferred to fake his own death. Waiting until the water started running in the bedroom again, I carefully slipped out of the office the same way I came in, through the window. Descending from the tree, I slipped and nearly fell, grabbing a branch at the last moment. My heart pounded so loudly that it seemed its beat would wake the entire neighborhood. Reaching the ground, I quickly crossed the yard and disappeared into the shadows of neighboring houses. Only in my car, after locking the doors and driving several blocks away, did I allow myself to catch my breath. What I had heard changed everything. Now I wasn't just looking for a missing brother, I was fighting for my own life. And most importantly, the phrase "first fight" echoed in my head. Fight. What did that mean? Underground fights, drugs, weapons. I dialed Dom's number, despite the late hour. "They want to take me out," I said without preamble. "Tomorrow when I go to the mountains." Sophia was talking on the phone with some man who's now at her house. "They're planning to get rid of me. And Dom." She mentioned something about a first fight in 2 days. What could that mean? "Damn," Dom exhaled. "Nate, you need to lay low right now." "No," I shook my head determinedly, though he couldn't see me. "I have to find out what happened to Liam." "Listen, I found something." Dom's voice became businesslike. "Your brother did withdraw 50,000 in cash, but that's not all. He had 3 loans from establishments connected to underground bookmakers. Does that mean anything to you?" "Gambling?" I was stunned. Liam had never shown interest in betting. "Not just gambling. Illegal bookmaking on no-holds-barred fights. An underground ring, Nate. Brutal fights with life-or-death stakes." I was silent, trying to process this information. "I'll come tomorrow," Dom said decisively. "We'll figure this out together. Until then, keep your head down. And don't go to the mountains no matter what they tell you. It's a trap." I agreed and hung up. My thoughts were racing. Liam and underground fights. My brother had been nauseated at the sight of blood since childhood. He couldn't even kill a fly. What the hell had happened to him? With these thoughts, I returned to the motel, locked the door, and pushed a table against it. A childish security measure, but still better than nothing. I placed a knife on the bedside table. Under the pillow, a gun I always carried despite not having a permit. Old habits die hard. I only fell asleep near dawn, and in my dreams, Liam stood at the edge of a ravine, arms outstretched as if about to take flight. "I didn't fall, Nate," he said. "I jumped." Chapter 2. Unraveling the Web. My watch read 5:23 a.m., and I was already sitting in the Lighthouse Diner, watching dawn illuminate the half-empty parking lot. The third cup of coffee scorched my fingers through the cardboard walls of the cup. Sleep had long ceased to be my friend, but today insomnia played to my advantage. I'd had time to check my car for trackers, change routes twice, and arrive at the meeting place an hour earlier than agreed. My chosen location, a classic truck stop, open 24/7 with worn vinyl booths and waitresses who couldn't care less about your problems as long as the tips were decent. The perfect choice for those who don't want to be found, or for those who fear surveillance. I no longer knew which category I fell into. Dom showed up at exactly 6, as we'd arranged. He came in not through the main entrance but from the kitchen side, an old habit from when every extra glance could cost you your life. He had changed considerably in the year since we'd last seen each other, more gray in his short stubble, deeper lines around his eyes, and his movements had acquired that special caution you develop when your back has too often been a target. "Quite the place you picked," he smirked instead of a greeting, sliding into the booth across from me. "I can smell the burnt oil even through the waitress's cologne." "The coffee's just as bad." I pushed the menu toward him, but he merely waved it away. "I had coffee in the car, and I'm not about to consume anything here just in case." I had missed his paranoia. Dominic Torres, a 40-year-old detective with a habit of seeing conspiracies even in cloud movements, was the only person with whom I felt normal. "What did you find for me?" I asked, getting straight to business. Dom looked around, then pulled a thin folder from his worn briefcase. "Your brother was in deep, deep trouble," he said, lowering his voice. "That's not even a question, it's a fact. 3 loans in 6 months from suspicious outfits, interest rates that are highway robbery. Here, take a look." He opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents I'd already seen in Liam's office, but also others whose existence I hadn't even suspected. Loan agreements with some shady operations whose names sounded like bad translations from Chinese. "Who are Night Lotus Investment?" I asked, examining the ornate logo on one of the contracts. "A front," Dom tapped the paper with his finger. "Night Lotus is a subsidiary of Golden Dragon, which in turn belongs to people from Eastern Europe who control underground bookmakers." "How much does he owe them?" "According to these papers, around 300,000. With interest growing like weeds, it'll be close to 400 by the end of the month." I whistled. My brother couldn't have earned that kind of money even in 5 years of teaching at the college. "But that's not even the main thing," Dom continued, turning the page. "Here are his card statements. See these regular cash withdrawals, always the same amount, $3,000, and look at the dates." I traced the dates and felt the back of my neck go cold. These days coincided with Sophia's visits to her parents. She was withdrawing money from his account. Possibly, or he was for her, but that's not all. Dom pulled a blurry photograph from the folder, apparently taken from a surveillance camera in a parking lot. "This is from a gas station in Ringwood 2 months ago. Sophia getting into a car but not her own." I examined the image. Indeed, it showed Sophia. She's hard to miss, even in dark glasses and with her collar turned up. She was getting into a luxurious black Mercedes, the same one I'd seen last night outside Liam's house. I ran the plates. Dom tapped on the lower corner of the photograph, where the license plate was visible. "The car is rented in the name of Marcus Keller. Does that name ring a bell?" For a moment the world stood still. A name from the past that I'd hoped never to hear again. A name that, even now, years later, made my fingertips go cold. It does, I said, hearing how my voice had changed, becoming deeper and harder. All too well. Dom looked at me carefully. I can see this isn't just a coincidence. Care to share? I shook my head. Later, what else did you find out? Dom didn't press. Instead, he pulled out a map of the town and unfolded it on the table. Today, Sophia is supposed to go to the police, give some additional testimony. At least, that's what she told Sheriff Cooper. I think we should follow her, see if she actually goes there. Agreed, I nodded. But we only have one car and she might recognize it. Already solved, Dom grinned. I've got wheels too, meet back here in an hour. And Nate, he paused, suddenly very serious. Be careful, I don't know what your brother got himself into, but it stinks of big trouble. Then we're used to it. I tried to smile, but my lips merely twisted into some pathetic parody of a smile. Dom left as inconspicuously as he had appeared, and I remained, looking at the documents spread before me. Waiting until the waitress moved to other customers, I took my phone from my pocket and searched for the name I'd hoped to forget, Marcus Keller. Nothing substantial. Old news about a former military man, discharged from the U.S. Army for code of conduct violations. No photos except a blurry shot from some military ceremony. Nothing that could explain the connection to my brother. But I knew who Keller was and what he was capable of. Aye. We began surveillance at 10 in the morning, parking in 2 different locations with good views of Liam's house. Dom had procured an inconspicuous gray Ford that blended in with other cars on the street. I remained in my Chevy, but moved it to the next street and pulled a baseball cap over my head to avoid being recognized if Sophia happened to look my way. Waiting, the worst part of any operation. Time drags like molasses, thoughts circle endlessly, and paranoia whispers that you're being watched even when the street is completely empty. After the 3rd hour of sitting motionless, I began to doubt Sophia would leave the house at all. Maybe she noticed the surveillance, or decided to change plans, or... My musings were interrupted by a call from Dom. The door's opening, he reported. She's coming out. I carefully straightened up, stretching my stiff back. Indeed, Sophia was descending the steps of the porch, dressed in a modest navy blue dress. No red outfits or provocative necklines for you today. Now she looked exactly as a woman who had lost her husband should look, restrained and in mourning. I'm following her, Dom said. You're on backup. Sophia got into her red Maserati, not left in the garage this time, and pulled onto the road. Dom's gray Ford set off after her, maintaining distance. I started the engine and merged into the flow of traffic, trying to stay 3 or 4 cars behind Dom. The Maserati did indeed head toward the police station, but a couple of blocks before reaching it, suddenly turned onto a side street. Then another turn and another. Sophia was clearly checking if she was being followed, checking professionally, I would even say militarily. She knows how to shake a tail, Dom hissed over the phone. I'm letting you take points so I don't blow my cover. For the next 20 minutes we played cat and mouse, taking turns and trying not to lose sight of the red car. After several clever maneuvers, Sophia, apparently satisfied with the absence of a tail, got onto the highway and headed toward the upscale district of town. Grand Plaza, Dom identified as the Maserati turned toward a high-rise building of glass and concrete. Damn 5-star hotel with rooms starting at $500 a night. I know a spot here with a good view. We parked in different corners of the hotel's underground garage. Dom went in first, and I, after waiting 10 minutes, followed him, first donning a jacket with a courier service logo that he had left for me on the back seat. The hotel lobby was sparsely populated. With a trained eye, I picked out 2 security guards, one by the entrance, the other near the elevators. both in civilian clothes, but their posture and attentive gazes betrayed them as former military or police. Dom was waiting for me in a cafe with panoramic windows overlooking the hotel's inner courtyard. The perfect observation post, several exits, good visibility, and many patrons among whom to blend in. She went up to the 12th floor, he informed me, not taking his eyes off his espresso cup. I have a friend at reception, checking who's renting rooms there. I ordered coffee and sat down beside him, trying not to look too interested. Do you think she's meeting Keller there? We'll know soon, Dom nodded toward his phone, which had just received a message. The suite on the 12th is rented by a corporation called Eastern Horizon. Another front just like Night Lotus. Looks like we're on the right track. We sat in the cafe for about an hour when Dom suddenly tensed and discreetly nodded toward the elevator. Look without turning, by the column. I carefully turned my head as if studying the menu and saw her. Sophia was standing by the elevator, talking to a tall man in an impeccable gray suit. The distance didn't allow me to see his face in detail, but even from afar his military bearing and something characteristic about his posture were noticeable. When they turned, heading toward the exit, I saw the man's profile and froze. The same sharp nose, the same jawline, and the scar, long, cutting across his left cheek from the temple to the chin. I would recognize him out of thousands. Marcus Keller, the man who tortured a prisoner in Kandahar until he choked on his own blood. The man I helped get discharged from the army by testifying against him. The man who vowed to take revenge on me and everyone dear to me. That's him, I whispered, feeling my throat constrict with rage and fear. Keller. Dom silently took from his pocket a small device, resembling a hearing aid. Directional microphone, he explained. Can pick up conversation at a distance of up to 30 meters with good acoustics. They're just within range now. He inserted one earpiece into his ear and handed the other to me. Through the interference and background noise of the hall, I caught fragments of conversation. Creating problems, but doesn't know anything for certain. This was Sophia's voice, quieter and harsher than when she spoke to me. Too dangerous to leave him. How many questions he's asking? Keller replied with the same slight Eastern European accent I remembered. Yes, Marcus, I understand the seriousness of the situation. Sophia spoke almost fawningly, like a subordinate fearing her boss's anger. And then a phrase that made me shudder. Get rid of him or I'll do it myself. We're too close to the goal. They were talking about me, about a man asking too many questions, about an obstacle that needed to be removed. Sophia and Keller left the hotel and got into a waiting black Mercedes, the same one I'd seen yesterday at Liam's house. Should we follow them? Dom asked, already rising. I shook my head. No, I have a better idea. While Sophia's at the meeting, we can check out their country house. Country house? Dom raised an eyebrow questioningly. Yes, Liam and Sophia have a second home, half an hour's drive from here. I was there a couple of times for barbecues. If Liam really got into something, there might be clues there. Dom nodded, and we headed for the exit, trying to stay away from surveillance cameras. Only when we reached the parking garage did I notice my hands were shaking. Keller had been close to my brother all this time. Perhaps because of me, Liam had been drawn into this mess. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and Keller, it seems, had been preparing his portion for a long time. Ay. Liam and Sophia's country house was located in the suburbs, in a small community for middle-class people who want to appear wealthier than they actually are. Neat cottages on tiny plots, tidy lawns with automatic sprinklers, garden gnomes, and white picket fences. The American dream in miniature. Is this it? Dom slowed down a couple of houses away from our target. Yes, I peered at the windows, checking for movement inside. Blue house with white shutters. Looks like no one's there, and no cars in the yard. We left the car around the corner and approached the house on foot, trying to look like ordinary passers-by. Fortunately, no neighbors were visible. Workday, all normal people at their jobs. The door, as I expected, was locked. I examined the lock. Standard, nothing complicated. "Can you?" Dom asked, nervously looking around. In response, I took out a set of lockpicks from my pocket. Another habit left over from service days, when the ability to open a lock silently could save lives. Less than a minute, and the door yielded. Inside, the house was as generic as outside. A living room with a couch and TV, a kitchen combined with a dining area, stairs to the second floor. No personal items, photographs, or trinkets, as if no one lived here, just stored furniture. "Strange," I muttered. "When I was here last time, the house looked lived in. There were photographs, books." "Maybe they decided to sell the house or rent it out," Dom suggested, examining the kitchen drawers. "Everything's too neat and impersonal." We methodically searched the first floor, finding nothing remarkable. On the second floor were 2 bedrooms and a small office, also empty and sterile. "Let's check the basement," I proposed, remembering that's where Liam kept his sports trophies and old belongings. The basement door was behind the kitchen. I flicked the switch, and a dim bulb illuminated the steep stairs leading down. It smelled of dampness and something else. Chemical. Bleach. The basement proved much more interesting than the rest of the house. Clearly, cleaning had been done in a hurry. The floor was thoroughly washed, but stains remained on the walls. In the corner stood boxes of old things, bags with clothes and other junk. "Let's check everything," Dom commanded, pulling on gloves. We worked silently, focused. I sorted through the contents of boxes. Dom tapped the walls looking for hiding places. After half an hour, we found some old letters from Liam, his college yearbook, and a box with medals for victories in school competitions. Nothing that could explain his disappearance. Then Dom quietly whistled. "Nate, look at this." He was standing by the far wall, probing the floorboards. One of them lifted slightly when he pressed on the edge. "A hiding place," I whispered, kneeling beside him. Dom carefully pried up the floorboard and set it aside. Underneath was a small hollow containing a plastic container. I carefully extracted it and opened the lid. Inside was a passport, several credit cards, and a stack of $100 bills. I opened the passport and saw Sophia's photo, but the name was different, Olivia Kane. "Fake documents," Dom murmured, "professionally made, and a good amount of cash." I continued examining the contents of the container and came across several expensive pieces of jewelry wrapped in soft cloth. Diamond earrings, a sapphire necklace, clearly beyond the means of an ordinary college professor. And at the very bottom lay a piece of paper folded into quarters. I unfolded it. It was an address. The address of some warehouse on the outskirts of town, written by hand. "Got you," I whispered. "I think that's where they're keeping Liam, or—" I didn't finish the sentence, but Dom understood. "Or his body." I photographed all the contents of the hiding place on my phone, then carefully returned the container to its place and replaced the floorboard. "Let's go," Dom ordered. "We need to check that address." We were already climbing the stairs when I heard the sound of an approaching car. Tires rustled on the gravel driveway. "Damn," Dom cursed, "someone's here." I peered through the small basement window. On the driveway stood a familiar red Maserati. "It's Sophia," I whispered. "We need to get out of here." The basement had only one exit, through the door to the kitchen. Trapped, we frantically searched for an escape route. I looked at the window again. It was small, but perhaps large enough to squeeze through. Through the window, quickly. I was already working on the latch, trying to open it. The window frame gave way with an awful creak. Outside, the window was almost at ground level, giving us a chance to escape unnoticed. I let Dom go first. He was bigger than me, and if he could fit, I definitely would. With difficulty squeezing through the narrow opening, Dom emerged outside and helped me. We barely had time to crawl aside and hide behind the bushes when the front door opened. Sophia entered the house, not alone. With her was another man, not Keller, but someone younger, with a shaved head and a massive neck, the typical appearance of a bodyguard or fighter. We waited until they went inside, then, staying low, ran along the hedge to where we had left the car. That was damn close, Dom exhaled when we had driven a safe distance away. Do you think they'll notice someone was in the house? If they do, not right away. I rubbed my neck, down which cold sweat was trickling. We were careful. Then let's head to the motel. Dom sharply turned the wheel, avoiding an oncoming car. We need to check this address and figure out who this Keller guy is. Though, judging by your reaction, you know him better than you'd like. I nodded, watching the houses fly past. Yes, I knew Keller, and that knowledge brought me no joy. IV. In the motel room, Dom set up a veritable command center. A laptop, a portable printer, even a small satellite antenna that he positioned outside the window. Where did you get all this? I nodded at the equipment. My ex-wife said I was paranoid, Dom smirked. But it's this paranoia that's fed me for the last 5 years. Surveillance on unfaithful spouses requires technical means. He quickly began typing, uploading the photos we'd taken in the house and checking the address of the warehouse we found. So this warehouse is in an industrial zone, he reported after a while. Used to be a meat processing plant, but it closed a couple of years ago. The area is supposedly abandoned, but electricity bills are regularly paid. And there's security there, according to satellite images. I studied the satellite image on the screen. A large industrial building surrounded by a fence. Several cars in the parking lot. Indeed, it didn't look like an abandoned facility. Now let's check our friend Keller. Dom opened a new window and began a search. I hacked into the police database. Don't look at me like that, I'm a former cop, I have my ways. So Marcus Keller, here he is. A photograph appeared on the screen, the same military bearing, the same scar on his face. Only here he was in military uniform, with medals on his chest. Marcus Keller, former Yugoslav Special Forces operative, Dom read. Later transferred to the U.S. Army as a contractor. Was discharged in 2005 for Code of Conduct violations. Currently on Interpol's lists as a possible organizer of illegal no-holds-barred fights. Considered untouchable due to connections in high places. I listened, feeling a chill run down my spine. Keller had become exactly what I had always feared he would become, a professional sadist profiting from the suffering of others. And what's this? Dom opened another tab. Look, photos from social media, old ones but. I leaned toward the screen and saw pictures of Sophia, or rather, Olivia, embracing Keller. In one, they were on a yacht, in another, at some restaurant. And they didn't look like business partners, more like a couple in love. Dates, Dom murmured. Look at the dates on the photos. I looked closer. The photographs were taken a year before Sophia met Liam. She didn't choose your brother by chance, Dom grimly concluded. It was a calculated operation. Bitterness flooded me. Poor, trusting Liam. All his life he had been searching for true love, only to find a snake that bit him. I know this man, I said, looking at Keller's photo. We served together. Dom raised an eyebrow questioningly, but didn't interrupt. He was discharged after an operation in Kandahar where he exceeded his authority. I spoke slowly, choosing my words. He tortured a prisoner to death, brutally, methodically, with obvious pleasure. I was there. I saw. I paused, trying to control the nausea rising from the memories. It was my testimony that led to his discharge. He swore to take revenge on me, said that one day I would regret my nobility, that he would find a way to make me suffer. And now he's using your brother for revenge, Dom finished for me. This isn't just business, it's personal. I nodded, feeling an icy horror growing in my chest. If my guess was correct, Liam had become a hostage in a game that I started. According to my sources, Dom continued, Keller has a special passion for fights between people who have family or friendship ties. He calls it a test of true values. They say he once forced twin brothers to fight to the death, promising the winner freedom. God, I whispered, is that what he's planning for us? I don't know, Dom answered honestly. But we need to check out that warehouse. If your brother is alive, he's most likely there. I rose decisively. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go right now. Stop, Dom held my arm. We can't just barge in there unprepared. This isn't some abandoned building. There will be guards, cameras, possibly armed men. We need a plan, equipment, weapons. He was right, of course, but the thought that Liam might be in Keller's hands was driving me crazy. We'll need gear, I tried to think rationally, something compact but effective. I know a shop, Dom nodded. They sell sporting goods, but in the back room they have a special inventory for people like us. We left an hour later, having drafted a rough plan for infiltrating the warehouse. Dom drove while I studied satellite images of the area, looking for weaknesses in the security. The shop Dom mentioned was located in an inconspicuous shopping center on the edge of town. Outwardly, an ordinary sporting goods store, but Dom exchanged a few words with the salesperson, and we were led to a back room. There we bought everything necessary for a night operation: tactical vests, night vision devices, tear gas canisters, stun guns, and a couple of pistols with silencers. All unofficial, of course, through Dom's acquaintance, who didn't ask unnecessary questions. Leaving the store with bags full of equipment, we headed to the parking lot. Suddenly, Dom froze. "Don't turn around," he whispered. "Black SUV across the street. Someone's watching us." I casually looked around, as if checking if I'd forgotten anything. Indeed, across the street stood a black Escalade with tinted windows, the same one I'd seen yesterday outside Liam's house. "How did they find us?" I murmured. "Don't know." Dom was already moving toward our car. "But we'd better not find out in the middle of the street." We had almost reached the car when the SUV suddenly pulled away from the curb and drove onto the road, heading toward us. "Run!" Dom shouted, and we dashed for the car. Dom jumped behind the wheel. I took the passenger seat. The engine started on the first try, and we shot out of the parking lot, nearly hitting a car parked nearby. The Escalade gave chase, gaining speed. At the intersection, Dom made a sharp turn, trying to shake the pursuit. "Hold on," he shouted, flooring the gas. We zigzagged through the city streets, breaking every possible traffic rule. The Escalade didn't fall behind, but it didn't come closer either, keeping its distance. "They want to see where we're headed," Dom said, looking in the rearview mirror. "They're trying to track us, not catch us." "Then we need to lose them." I took one of the purchased pistols from the bag. "Turn onto a side street with fewer people." Dom obediently turned into an industrial area where there was almost no traffic at this time of day. The Escalade followed, closing the distance. "Ready?" I lowered the window and leaned out, aiming at the front tire of our pursuers. But before I could shoot, another vehicle surged forward, a silver Mercedes blocking our path. Dom braked sharply to avoid a collision. We were trapped, the Mercedes in front, the Escalade behind. Armed men jumped out of both vehicles, 4 from the Escalade, 2 from the Mercedes, all in dark clothes with guns in hand. "Plan B," Dom gritted, abruptly opening the door and rolling behind the nearest dumpster. I followed his example, leaping from the car on the other side and taking cover behind a concrete barrier. A firefight began. The first shots sounded almost simultaneously. Bullets whistled overhead, breaking glass and leaving dents in the metal of our car. I returned fire, aiming at the attacker's legs. I didn't want to kill, but I didn't want to die either. Dom acted professionally, 2 precise shots, and 2 men from the Escalade were left lying on the asphalt, clutching wounded limbs. But the others continued to advance, taking advantage of their numerical superiority. Dom and I split up, trying to confuse the attackers. I ran to the fire escape of the nearest building, intending to climb up and gain a height advantage. But I hadn't taken more than a few steps up the ladder when I felt a burning pain in my shoulder. A bullet grazed me, tearing through my jacket and leaving a bloody furrow. I fell to my knees, trying to cope with the pain. At that moment, one of the attackers appeared right in front of me, aiming at my head. "Got you," he grinned. Time slowed down. I stared into the barrel of the gun, realizing I wouldn't have time to draw my own weapon. A thought flashed through my mind about Liam, about how I had failed him. And then a shot rang out, but not from the gun pointed at me. The attacker's head jerked and he collapsed to the ground, clutching his shot-through shoulder. I looked around, seeking my savior, and saw Dom on the roof of the adjacent building with a sniper rifle in his hands. He nodded to me and took aim again, dropping another attacker. The remaining men, seeing that the advantage was no longer on their side, quickly loaded the wounded into the vehicles and drove off, leaving us in the midst of a devastated street. Dom came down to me, helping me up. "You're wounded," he noted, looking at my bloody shoulder. "It's nothing," I winced in pain. "Just a scratch. Where did you get the rifle?" "Always keep it in the trunk," Dom grinned. "In case a client turns out to be too aggressive, but we need to get out of here. The police will be here soon." We quickly gathered the remaining equipment and switched to Dom's spare car, which he kept in a garage nearby. While he drove, I bandaged my shoulder with the first aid kit from the glove compartment. "They know everything about us," Dom said, checking the rearview mirror. "Our cars, our movements." "Then we're on the right track." I clenched my teeth, tightening the bandage. "They're afraid we'll get to the warehouse." "Or to Liam," Dom added. We drove in silence, each lost in our thoughts. The shootout had only strengthened my determination to find my brother, but it also made me realize how serious our opponents were. "We'll infiltrate the warehouse tonight," I said as we approached the motel, while they're licking their wounds and regrouping. Dom nodded. "Agreed, it'll be dark in a couple of hours. We need to prepare." At the motel, I took a shower, washing blood from my shoulder, and rebandaged the wound. Then Dom and I laid out the remaining equipment on the bed, preparing for the night operation. I looked at my watch. Less than an hour until sunset. Soon we would know if Liam was alive, and if he was, we'd get him out of Keller's clutches, whatever it took. Because of one thing I was absolutely certain. This man couldn't be left in the hands of a monster who once wore a military uniform, especially if I had helped create that monster. Chapter 3: Infiltration. The night was moonless, as if darkness itself had decided to become our ally. Dom and I crouched in the bushes opposite the warehouse complex, studying the scene. My shoulder still ached from the bullet wound, but I'd learned to ignore pain back in Afghanistan. Pain is just a signal that you're still alive. The location, that the coordinates from Sophia's hiding place, had led us to hardly resembled an abandoned warehouse. Luxurious cars lined the perimeter: Bentleys, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, transportation for those who consider counting money a tedious task. 2 guards in impeccable suits checked guests at the entrance. "Looks like a nightclub for millionaires," I whispered, examining the crowd through night vision goggles. "Except the entertainment there, judging by all indications, isn't dancing," Dom replied, pulling 2 cards from his inner pocket. "My informant got these for 10 grand. VIP invitations for tonight. Counterfeit, but good enough to pass the first checkpoint." I carefully examined the card. Gold embossing, elegant design with a logo resembling a stylized cage. "The Crucible, for the chosen only." "Ready?" Dom adjusted the collar of his jacket and checked the concealed holster under his arm. I nodded, feeling adrenaline beginning to flow through my veins, sharpening my senses. We moved toward the entrance, mimicking the relaxed gait of the other guests, people accustomed to luxury and absolute impunity. I. The guards at the entrance glanced briefly at our invitations and faces, checking against some list. One of them, with a square jaw and eyes as empty as a bullet, lingered his gaze on my face a bit longer. I was already preparing for failure, but he simply nodded and stepped aside. "Enjoy your evening, gentlemen." Inside, the warehouse was unrecognizable. Someone had invested millions to transform the industrial space into something resembling a Roman Colosseum. In the center rose a metal cage, an octagon of steel bars on a raised platform. Around it were rows of seats rising in an amphitheater, with separate boxes for especially privileged guests. The smell here was strange, a mixture of expensive perfumes, alcohol, sweat, and something metallic: blood. I surveyed the space, noting the locations of surveillance cameras, exits, and security. There were many of them, strong men with military bearing, in dark suits, with earpieces and unmistakable bulges under their jackets. Professionals. "Let's split up," Dom whispered when we reached the spectator section. "I'll check the back rooms, you stay here and observe. Keller should show up." I nodded. Dom dissolved into the crowd of guests, while I took a seat in the third row with a good view of both the cage and the main entrance. The audience around consisted mainly of men, pampered, in expensive suits with predatory smiles. There were women too, in evening gowns, draped in jewels with eyes hungry for spectacle. At the nearest box, I noticed a small terminal, for betting, I realized, when one of the guests swiped a card on it and selected something on the screen. Of course. What could be more exciting for a jaded rich man than betting on a person's life? My attention was drawn to several cameras directed not at the ring but at the spectators. Strange. Usually, surveillance cameras cover the perimeter, recording what happens in the arena. But why film the audience? The answer came suddenly. Insurance. They were recording the faces of everyone present. If someone decided to talk, the organizers would have compromising material on high-ranking guests enjoying an illegal spectacle. Clever and very dangerous for us. Aye. At exactly 10 o'clock, the lights went out. The hall plunged into darkness, filled with whispers of anticipation. Then a powerful spotlight illuminated the cage, and a voice boomed from the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crucible." The crowd erupted in applause. A man in an immaculate white suit ascended the platform. Even from my seat, I could distinguish the scar crossing his left cheek, Marcus Keller in person. "I greet you, seekers of authentic reality," he continued, sweeping the hall with the confident gaze of someone in charge. "Here in this cage, we see the true essence of humanity, without rules, without limitations, without the hypocrisy of civilization. Only the will to win and the fear of death. Only truth." The audience applauded again. Keller raised his hand, calling for silence. "Tonight we have a special evening. 4 bouts, each more thrilling than the last. And at the end, a special fight that many of you have been waiting for." I felt a chill inside. Special fight, Liam. And now, allow me to introduce the first participants. The fights began. The first was between two combatants of medium build, a fast Filipino using eskrima techniques, and a massive Russian with a bull's neck. The crowd went wild watching them circle the cage, exchanging blows. After 15 minutes of combat, the Russian fell unconscious, and guards dragged him out by the feet, leaving a bloody trail on the sand. The Asian raised his arms in a victory gesture, but there was no joy in his eyes, only the emptiness of a survivor. The second fight was even more brutal, a young African-American against a gray-haired veteran with Marine Corps tattoos. The veteran moved slowly, but each of his strikes was calculated for maximum damage. After a particularly powerful hook, the young fighter fell to his knees, and the old man, without hesitation, delivered a crushing blow to the back of his head. The crack of a broken vertebra was audible even through the roar of the crowd. The dead fighter was carried away, and his opponent received a stack of cash from Keller. The audience was in ecstasy. Next to me, some fat man in a magenta jacket jubilantly shook his pudgy fists, apparently having won a large bet on the veteran. I watched what was happening, feeling rage growing inside me, cold, calculating, giving me strength. If Liam was here, I would get him out, whatever it took. The third and fourth fights passed as if in a fog. I only noted that the level of brutality increased. In the last bout, the loser had both arms broken and his knee shattered, turning him into a cripple. The crowd rewarded each injury with applause, as if watching a particularly successful operatic aria. When the latest unfortunate was carried from the arena, Keller again stepped into the center of the cage. A silence descended, saturated with anticipation. "And now," he announced with a predator's smile, "the special bout, the entrance of our new champion." Ay, ay. A tall man with a shaved head and bare torso covered in fresh scars was led into the cage. Even without seeing his face, I recognized my brother by his characteristic gait, light, almost dancing. But this was no longer the Liam I knew. My younger brother, the lover of psychology books and quiet evenings, had been replaced by a fighter with cold eyes and a body transformed into a weapon. The crowd exploded in welcoming shouts. Some spectators jumped from their seats, chanting, "Phantom! Phantom!" Apparently, my brother had already earned a reputation in this cursed arena. "Our rising champion," Keller proudly announced, "a man who came from nowhere, defeating any opponent, the invincible Phantom." Into the opposite corner of the cage entered another fighter, a true giant with tattoos covering his entire body. Even compared to Liam, who had always been tall and athletic, this man looked monstrous. 6.5 feet tall, shoulders like a bull, fists the size of my head. "And now his opponent," Keller continued, "the Butcher of Queens, who has killed 3 in our arena. Bets are being accepted." The terminals around the cage flashed, accepting final bets. A gong sounded, and the fighters moved toward each other. I couldn't take my eyes off Liam. His movements showed the confidence of a professional who knows his craft. He circled his opponent, making no sudden moves, conserving energy. The giant, in contrast, moved in a straight line, obviously counting on ending the fight with one devastating blow. The Butcher's first attack was lightning fast for a man his size, a direct punch to the head that could fracture a skull. Liam dodged with almost inhuman speed and delivered a series of blows to the giant's ribs. The latter roared in pain, but seemed only to grow angrier. For the next 5 minutes, the opponents exchanged blows, probing each other's weaknesses. Liam took several strong hits but remained standing. Then something unexpected happened. The giant executed a grapple and lifted Liam above his head, clearly intending to slam him onto the cage floor. I leaned forward, certain that my brother was about to be seriously injured. But Liam, twisting in the air, wrapped his legs around his opponent's neck and rotated, using the momentum of his fall against the giant. They crashed down together, but Liam ended up on top, immediately locking the Butcher's arm in a joint lock. There was a crack of breaking bones, and the giant roared in pain. Liam didn't stop, freeing his arm. He delivered a series of precise strikes to the opponent's jaw. After the third blow, the giant went limp. But Liam, as if not noticing that the fight was over, raised his fist for another blow, the final deadly one. "Enough!" Keller's voice rang out, and Liam froze as if coming out of a trance. "We have a winner, the invincible Phantom." The crowd erupted in a standing ovation. People jumped from their seats, throwing money into the cage, shouting my brother's name. And Liam stood amidst this madness with raised arms, covered in blood, his own and others, absorbing the crowd's energy. Something dark that I had never seen before flickered in his eyes, intoxication with power over life and death. At that moment, A woman in a tight red dress approached the cage Sophia. Liam leaned between the bars and she passionately kissed him, like a victorious gladiator. The audience greeted this gesture with new applause. Guards opened the cage and led Liam out, like a trained tiger cautiously but with respect. Sophia followed them, but when Liam was taken to the back rooms, she lingered at the base of the platform. Keller was waiting for her there. I watched as she embraced him just as passionately as she had embraced my brother a minute ago. Keller whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, throwing back her head. They looked like a perfect pair of predators enjoying a successful hunt. This woman's duplicity shocked even me, who had seen plenty of betrayals in my time. But I couldn't afford the luxury of anger or disgust. Not now. I needed to find my brother and get him out of here before it was too late. IV. Taking advantage of the general excitement, I discreetly detached myself from the crowd and slipped backstage. There, as I expected, was a guarded corridor leading deep into the building. Two guards with automatic weapons blocked the path to any curious onlookers. I retreated into the shadows and was considering infiltration options when I felt someone's hand cover my mouth. I was abruptly pulled into a dark room, and I was about to attack the unknown assailant when I heard a familiar voice. "Izzy, it's me." Dom, I caught my breath, and he removed his hand. "Did you see?" I asked, trying to whisper, though inside everything was boiling. "Did you see Liam, what they've done to him?" I saw Dom was unusually serious. "Your brother, he doesn't look like a victim, Nate." I knew he was right, but it was painful to hear. "We need to find him," I said determinedly. "Talk to him." Dom nodded and pulled out a tablet. On the screen was a schematic of the building. "Here are the barracks where they keep the fighters." He pointed to a block of rooms in the eastern wing. "Your brother should be in a separate cell, the star of the show. Guards everywhere, but there's a loophole, the ventilation system." I studied the schematic, memorizing the layout of rooms and corridors. The plan was risky but feasible. We needed to get into the technical corridor, from there into the ventilation, and through it reach the block of solitary cells. "How did you get the schematic?" I asked, following Dom through a storage room piled with some boxes. "Hacked their security system," he answered laconically. "They have good technology but terrible passwords, typical mistake." The technical corridor turned out to be a narrow passage, dimly lit by sparse lamps. It smelled of machine oil and dust. Dom stopped in front of a ventilation grate and quickly unscrewed the fasteners. "I'll go first," he whispered. "Be careful, there might be motion sensors in there." He climbed inside and I followed, trying to move as quietly as possible. The ventilation shaft was tighter than it appeared on the schematic. We had to crawl, pressing our elbows against the metal floor. Every sound seemed deafening in the enclosed space. We passed several branches, checking against the schematic on Dom's tablet. Through the grates below, various rooms were visible. A security room with monitors, an armory, some laboratory with medical equipment. Apparently, this is where they repaired fighters after particularly severe bouts. Finally, we reached the block of solitary cells. Through the grate, I saw a corridor with metal doors on both sides, like in a maximum security prison. An armed guard stood at each door. "Liam's cell should be at the end of the corridor," Dom whispered. "The last one on the right, it's marked VIP." We carefully moved to the needed grate. Through it, I could see part of the cell, a simple bed, a table, a sink. On the wall, a poster of some fighting tournament. Liam wasn't visible. "I'll have to go down," I decided. "That's madness," Dom objected. "They'll spot us immediately." "Do you have a better plan?" He sighed and shook his head. "All right, but I'll stay here, cover you if something goes wrong." We waited until the guard walked to the far end of the corridor, and I carefully unscrewed the grate fasteners. Descending into the cell proved more difficult than I thought. My wounded shoulder responded with sharp pain when I hung by my arms, preparing to jump. But adrenaline and years of training did their job. I landed almost silently and found myself face to face with Liam. V. My brother was surprisingly neither frightened nor surprised by my sudden appearance. He sat on the bed, calm, with a book in his hands. Seeing me, he merely closed it and set it aside. "I knew you would come," he said quietly but confidently. A new tone had entered his voice, hard, calculated. "Liam." I stepped toward him, but he raised his hand, stopping me. "Don't, Nate. I know why you're here, but I won't go with you." I froze, stunned by his reaction. "You don't understand what you've gotten yourself into," I said, trying to speak quietly so as not to attract the guard's attention. "These people are dangerous. Keller is a war criminal, and your wife, she's not who she pretends to be." Liam laughed bitterly. "And who among us is what they seem?" He gestured to his transformed body. "I'm in debt up to my eyeballs, Nate, gambling. I couldn't stop. $300,000 with my professor's salary, that might as well be $1 billion. We could have solved this together." I took another step toward him. "Sell my apartment, take out a loan. And what, live on the street, hide from debt collectors all my life?" Liam shook his head. "No, Keller offered me a way out. Stage a disappearance and become a fighter. 5 more fights and I'm free, with clean accounts and $1 million in my pocket." I couldn't believe my ears. My brother, who had always hated violence, now spoke of death matches as a career opportunity. "And then what?" I asked. "Return to a normal life, after you've maimed and killed people for the entertainment of a crowd." A shadow of doubt crossed his face, but quickly disappeared. "I'll find a way to live with it," he said firmly. "Everyone has their demons." "And Sophia, is she part of this plan too?" "She supports me." A defensive note entered his voice. "She's the only one who didn't turn away when she found out about my debts." I decided to risk it. "Liam, Sophia works for Keller. She was with him long before she met you. This is all part of a plan." His face contorted with anger. "You're lying. She loves me. She supports me, unlike you, who was always too busy saving the world." These words hit harder than the bullet in my shoulder, but I had to get through to him. "She has a fake passport in the name of Olivia Kane. We found it in a hiding place in your country house. There were also jewels that you couldn't possibly have given her, and—" "Enough," he cut me off. "I don't want to hear this. You always thought you knew better how I should live. Even when you abandoned us and our parents to play hero, you continued to judge me." "I never—" "Yes, exactly like that." He leaned forward, and I noticed for the first time a scar crossing his right eyebrow. "You know why I started gambling? Because it was the only way to feel something real. Risk, adrenaline, after so many years in the shadow of a perfect older brother." I wanted to object, but footsteps sounded in the corridor. The guard was returning to Liam's cell. "We need to leave," I lowered my voice. "Right now, please, Liam, let me help you." He looked at me with a long, appraising gaze. For a moment I thought I had gotten through to him, that something of the old Liam flickered in his eyes. But he shook his head. "Go, Nate, and don't come back. This is my choice, my life." The footsteps in the corridor were getting closer. I realized there was no more time for persuasion. "I'll come back for you," I promised, heading to the ventilation grate where Dom was waiting, "whether you want it or not." Dom helped me pull myself up, and I had almost climbed into the shaft when the cell door crashed open. "VI. Inspection," came the guard's gruff voice. I froze, half exposed in the ventilation. The guard was looking right at me, his hand already reaching for his holster. "Freeze," he shouted, drawing his pistol. I lunged upward, but it was too late. The guard managed to grab my ankle and yank me down. I crashed to the cell floor, badly hitting my wounded shoulder. Before I could get up, 2 more guards burst into the cell with weapons ready. "Don't touch him," Liam shouted, jumping up from the bed. "He's my brother." His words were ignored. One of the guards struck me in the stomach with his rifle butt, knocking the wind out of me. Another pulled out a stun gun and pressed it to my neck. An electric current shot through my body, making my muscles convulse. Consciousness began to drift, sounds reaching me as if through water. Through the fog, I saw Liam trying to intervene, but a third guard roughly pushed him against the wall. "This isn't your business, champion," he said mockingly. "Boss's orders." Half conscious, I was dragged from the cell and hauled down the corridor. I resisted weakly, but after the stun gun shock, my body barely responded. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement in the ventilation dome. At least he had managed not to get caught. I was brought to a spacious office, furnished with ostentatious luxury, marble floors, antique furniture, paintings in heavy frames. Amidst all this splendor, behind a mahogany desk sat Marcus Keller, still in his impeccable white suit. "Nate Blackwood," he said, rising from behind the desk. "EOD specialist, the man who ruined my career." He came closer, peering into my face. I could see every detail of his scar, an uneven, jagged gash from a grenade fragment. I remembered the day he received it. Back then, we were still on the same side. "You know, I should thank you," he continued, while guards held me upright. "Without you, I'd still be languishing in the army, taking orders from idiots playing politics. And now I have all this," he gestured around the room. "Freedom, power, money. You did me a favor." I gathered all my strength and spat in his face. "You're sick, Keller." He didn't change expression, just unhurriedly took a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped away the spit. "No, Nate, I'm not the one who's sick. The world is sick, pretending to be civilized while thirsting for blood and spectacle. I'm just satisfying the demand." He returned to his desk and sat down, placing his hands on the polished surface. "You know, I could kill you right now. It would be simple and boring." He thoughtfully tapped his fingers on the desk. "But I have a better idea, an idea that will make tomorrow evening unforgettable." I felt a chill inside, guessing where he was heading. "Tomorrow you'll fight your brother," Keller announced. "To the death, or you both die here and now." "You're insane," I managed. "Liam will never agree." "Oh, he will," Keller smiled. "When he learns that your life depends on it, and his own, of course. The grand prize, $1 million and freedom for the winner. Tempting, isn't it?" He rose and approached the window overlooking the arena, where workers were already preparing the cage for the next day. "You're military too, former EOD, elite unit. This will be a spectacle." His voice held genuine enthusiasm. "Brotherhood blood, the very quintessence of my philosophy. When forced to choose between one's own life and the life of the closest person, what will each of us choose?" "We'll refuse," I said, though I understood how pitiful it sounded. "Then you'll both die today," Keller shrugged. "And other fighters will enter the arena. The business won't stop, but it would be a shame to miss such an experiment." He nodded to the guards. "Take him to the cell opposite his brother's. Let them admire each other through the bars. Think about tomorrow." I was dragged back down the corridor to another cell located directly across from Liam's. Inside was the same Spartan furnishing: bed, table, sink. The guards threw me on the floor and slammed the door. When the sound of their footsteps faded, I struggled to my feet and approached the bars. Opposite, in his cell, stood Liam. Our eyes met across the corridor. "What did they tell you?" he asked quietly. "Tomorrow we have to fight, to the death, or they'll kill us both today." He nodded, as if expecting this. "It was always his plan," he said, "from the very beginning, to make us kill each other." "We'll find a way out," I said, gripping the bars of the cell. "Dom is still free, we still have a chance." Liam gazed at me with a long look. In his eyes swirled a mixture of fatigue, fear, and some determination. "Each of us always thought we knew better," he finally said. "Maybe it's time to truly know each other, even if it's our last day." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Behind the bars opposite stood my younger brother, tormented, changed beyond recognition, but still Liam. And I vowed to myself that I would get him out of here, whatever it took. Even if I had to face him in that cursed arena. Even if I had to die so he could live. Chapter 4: The Final Fight. The night passed like a fevered dream. The hard cot in the cell, dimmed light that didn't turn off even in the dark hours, the measured footsteps of guards in the corridor. All this reminded me of the worst days in Taliban captivity. Except then I was alone. Now, across from me, behind the bars of another cell, was my brother. Liam slept restlessly. I watched him toss and turn on his cot, frowning in his sleep. What dreams come to a man who has killed for the entertainment of a crowd? What demons haunt him in the darkness? I didn't close my eyes. My shoulder ached, but the pain was rather comforting. As long as you feel pain, you're alive. I developed plan after plan, discarding one after another as unrealistic. With each hour, the situation seemed more hopeless. Only hope for Dom remained, but even that was weak. What could one man do against Keller's entire army of thugs? When the first rays of sunlight penetrated through the narrow window near the ceiling, I knew only one thing. Today someone would die. And I would do everything to ensure that someone wasn't Liam. Morning brought a visit from Keller. He didn't come alone. 2 guards with automatic weapons accompanied him, warily surveying the corridor. Behind them entered a third, pushing a cart with monitors before him. "I hope you rested well," Keller said, approaching the bars of my cell. The white suit had been replaced with navy blue, but the gold pin with the emblem of the special unit where we once served together still adorned his lapel. Irony that made me sick. "Why all these complications, Marcus?" I asked, moving closer. "If you want to kill me, just do it." Keller smiled, and as always, that smile never reached his eyes. "Killing you would be too simple, Nate, and not instructive enough," he nodded to the guard, who turned the monitor toward me. "I know you. You're the type who would sooner die than harm someone close, and that makes my experiment particularly interesting." The screen displayed surveillance camera footage, a residential street down which a mail van slowly drove. I recognized the area. That's where my parents lived after moving to Florida. "What is this?" I asked, though I already guessed. "Look here," Keller opened another recording on his tablet. "This happened last month." The screen showed another clip. The same mail van, the same street, but this time the vehicle suddenly loses control and crashes into a roadside tree. From this angle, the details of the accident aren't visible, but from the nature of the collision, I understood that the driver likely didn't survive. "And this," Keller switched to a third clip, "occurred 2 weeks ago. New footage. A military man leaves a bar, gets into a car, drives a few blocks, then a truck cuts him off. The car flies off the road, flips over, and catches fire." I felt ice spreading inside me. "That's Sergeant Rodriguez," I murmured, "and Captain West." "Exactly," Keller nodded. "Your former comrades. What a strange coincidence, isn't it? Especially considering that these people testified against me, along with you." He switched the image back to the live broadcast from my parents' street. "I have long arms, Nate, and a very, very long memory. Either you fight your brother today, or the list of victims will include your parents and everyone else dear to you." Darkness clouded my vision. I lunged at the bars, gripping them so tightly that my knuckles turned white. "You bastard, if you touch my parents." "What? Kill me?" "I'm afraid for that you'll first have to get out of here, and the only way to do that is to defeat your brother tonight." I helplessly lowered my hands. This had all been planned from the beginning. Liam, just a pawn in his game, a means to get to me. I glanced at the cell across the corridor. Liam stood behind the bars, silently observing our conversation. "Even if I agree," I said quietly, "what's to stop you from killing them afterward?" "My word," Keller placed his hand over his heart in a theatrical gesture. "I may be many things, but I always keep my word. If you fight your brother, your parents will remain untouched. He paused. At least as long as it remains profitable. This was the best I could hope for, buying time, a chance to at least try to save my parents after, if there would be an after. Fine, I said, I'll fight. Excellent, Keller looked pleased. At 6 o'clock you'll be brought to the arena. Put on a good show, Nate. Don't disappoint me. He turned to leave, but then, as if remembering something, looked back. By the way, your friend, Private Detective Dominic Torres. Keller smiled, seeing me tense up. Don't worry, he's alive for now, but my men are watching him. If he makes even one call to the police, he's a dead man, and after him, your parents. With these words he departed, leaving me with a heavy stone in my chest. Hope for Dom's help was fading with each second. When Keller's footsteps died away, I met Liam's gaze. Did you hear? I asked. He nodded. Keller always gets what he wants, he replied in a lifeless voice. I should have realized that earlier. In his eyes I saw a reflection of my own despair. We were both cornered, and there seemed to be no way out. Aye. The hours dragged painfully slowly. Guards brought us food, some tasteless porridge that I could barely swallow. Liam also hardly touched his portion. We exchanged brief phrases across the corridor, trying not to attract the attention of surveillance cameras, but there was little to say. What can you tell a brother you're being forced to fight to the death? As evening approached, when the shadows from the bars began to lengthen on the floor, footsteps sounded in the corridor. I expected to see guards coming to lead us to the arena, but instead, Sophia appeared at my cell. She was stunningly beautiful in a form-fitting black dress with a plunging neckline. Hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, around her neck, a diamond necklace that I had seen in the hiding place under the floorboard of the country house. Leave us, she ordered the guards. They exchanged glances but obeyed, moving several meters away out of earshot. Come to enjoy the sight of a fallen enemy, I asked, not hiding my contempt. She smiled, and that smile was simultaneously seductive and poisonous. I came to offer you one last night of pleasure before death, she purred, pressing against the bars so that I could smell her perfume. You're a man, Nate, just like all the rest, with the same needs. I shuddered with disgust. Have you fallen so low that you're willing to sleep with the brother of a man you call your husband? Husband, lover, these are just words, she shrugged with feigned indifference. Keller wasn't against it either, he even said it's spicy. Sophia's fingers slid along the bars like snakes. I always liked you more than Liam, there's something dangerous in you, broken, it's exciting. I looked into her eyes, cold, calculating. Now I saw the real Sophia, without the mask of a devoted wife. Why are you doing this? I asked. Why all of this? Something in my voice made her change tactics. She stepped back from the bars, and the seductress disappeared, giving way to a businesswoman. You'll never understand, she replied. You were born into a normal family with parents who loved you, with prospects, with opportunities. And you. Her face contorted, showing for a moment the pain that hid behind the beautiful facade. I grew up in a trailer park where my mother brought a new daddy every week, Sophia's voice hardened. You know what it's like to starve, to wear clothes someone else threw away, to hide in a closet because mom's new friend decided a 12-year-old girl was old enough to have fun. I was silent, not knowing what to answer. I swore to myself I'd get out of there at any cost, she continued. And you know what? I'm almost at the finish line. Sophia smiled, but there was nothing human in that smile. Your brother was just a means to infiltrate the circles of wealthy players. I myself found him creditors who drove him into a debt trap. I clenched my fists, feeling anger rising. You never loved him. This wasn't a question but a statement. Love, she laughed, and that laugh sounded like breaking glass. You're as naive as your brother. Love is a luxury for losers, for those who can afford to be weak. And Keller, do you love him? Sophia tilted her head, contemplating. No, but he understands me. He knows what it means to fight for survival, knows the value of power. She moved closer to the bars. Keller promised me a share and a place beside him if I found him new fighters. Liam turned out to be a gold mine, a natural talent. And now I'll have a brotherly duel. Can you imagine how much money this will bring? I silently stared at her. Meanwhile, my hand felt for a small device the size of a button in my pocket, an implant recorder that I'd always carried since my service days, an old military habit that proved invaluable. Is there really not a shred of conscience in you? I asked, discreetly activating the recording with a finger movement. Sophia laughed again. Conscience is a luxury for losers, she repeated, unaware that her every word was being recorded. You and your brother will die today, one by the hand of the other. What irony. And I'll stand next to Keller, counting money from the bets. She leaned toward the bars, lowering her voice to a whisper. And you know what's most amusing? Keller hates you far more than you can imagine. This isn't just business, it's a personal vendetta. He's been planning for years how to make you suffer. Liam was just the perfect bait. She pulled back, hearing the returning guard's footsteps. Last offer, Sophia said, returning to her role of seductress. One last night of pleasure before death. Go to hell, I gritted out. She shrugged, not offended in the least. Your choice. See you in the arena, Nate. When Sophia left, escorted by the guards, I turned off the recording. The recorder wasn't designed for long operation, but what I'd captured already represented irrefutable evidence. Now, I just had to get out of here alive to use it. I looked up and noticed that Liam had observed the entire scene through the bars of his cell. His face was impossible to read, hearing the confessions of the woman he had considered his wife. Ay. When the corridor emptied, I approached the bars of my cell, getting as close as the rods allowed. Liam, I called quietly, did you hear? He nodded, his face deathly pale. Every word, he replied barely audibly. I took out the recorder and showed it to him. I have a recording of her confession, I said. We need to get out of here and deliver it to the police. It's the only way to stop Keller. Liam came to his bars, gripping them as if he wanted to bend them with his bare hands. I was such an idiot, he whispered, blind, pathetic idiot. He punched the metal with such force that his knuckles bled. I loved her, Nate, really loved her. I know, I wished I could get closer, put a hand on my brother's shoulder, comfort him, but we were separated by bars and a corridor. She used all of us. You, me, even Keller, she's a professional manipulator. Liam raised his eyes, and they swirled with a mixture of pain and rage. What do we do? He asked. The security is too strong, cameras everywhere. I surveyed the corridor, the cameras, our cells. A plan began forming in my head, insane, almost impossible, but it was our only chance. The only moment when we can do something is during the fight, when they take us out of the cells. I spoke quickly and quietly, trying to prevent the cameras from recording my words. If we try to escape before that, they'll just shoot us. But in the arena... In the arena, there are armed guards around the perimeter, Liam objected. And the audience. They'd sooner shoot everyone than let us escape. But we have an advantage. I leaned even closer to the bars. Keller wants a show, a spectacular show, so we have to give him one, but on our terms. Liam watched me intently, beginning to understand what I was driving at. Pretend to fight, he whispered, then suddenly attack the guards. I nodded. We need to make the fight look realistic enough that Keller doesn't suspect anything. You'll attack me seriously, I'll defend myself. At a certain point, you'll apply a joint lock, make it look like you broke my arm. And then, when everyone's expecting the finishing blow, together we'll attack the cage guards. The element of surprise will be on our side, if we can get hold of weapons. Liam pondered. This is madness, he said finally, but we have no other option. For the next hour, we developed the details of our plan. Liam, as the more experienced fighter, explained what techniques he would use so I could react appropriately. We discussed exactly how he would break my arm to make it look convincing from the outside but not cause real harm. "What if Dom actually comes to help?" Liam asked. "You said he's still free." I shook my head. "We can't count on that. Keller said he's being watched. If he tries to contact the police, they'll kill him." I paused. "No, we have to act as if no outside help is coming." Liam nodded, accepting this, and then suddenly said something I hadn't expected to hear. "I'm glad you came, Nate, even despite all this. I'm glad we're together again." Something tightened in my chest, a warm feeling amidst the cold of our hopeless situation. "Me too, kiddo," I replied, using a nickname I hadn't called him since childhood. "We'll get out of here together." Echoes of approaching footsteps spread down the corridor. Liam and I pulled back from the bars, realizing the time had come. 6 guards approached our cells, 3 for each of us. "Showtime, fighters," one of them said, unlocking my cell. "Hope you're ready to die for the audience's entertainment." IV. The arena was packed. Thousands of eyes hungrily stared at the cage illuminated by spotlights where we were to fight. People in expensive suits and evening gowns excitedly conversed, placing bets on the outcome. Terminals around the perimeter flashed, accepting final transactions. We were led in from opposite sides, like gladiators in a Roman Colosseum. I wore simple black shorts and no shirt, so the audience could see every blow, every drop of blood. Liam across from me looked like a professional fighter, in branded shorts with the Crucible logo, his hands wrapped in bandages. Keller ascended the platform beside the cage, dressed in the same navy blue suit as this morning. Next to him stood Sophia, radiant in her black dress, like a queen of death. "Ladies and gentlemen," Keller's voice boomed from the speakers, "today you're in for a special treat, a fight the likes of which our arena has never seen before, brother against brother." The crowd erupted in applause and approving shouts. To my left, a newcomer to our arena, but by no means a novice in the art of war. Former EOD specialist, a man who has saved dozens of lives and taken no fewer, Nate Blackwood. The spectators rumbled, examining me like an exotic animal in a zoo. And to my right, the undefeated champion of our arena, a man who knows no defeat, the Phantom. At Liam's name, the crowd exploded in rapturous roars. Evidently, my brother had accumulated fans here. "The rules are simple," Keller continued. "The fight continues until death. No limitations, no mercy. The winner receives freedom and $1 million. The loser, well, there are no losers here." He paused, smiling like a shark before an attack. "Begin." A gong sounded, and Liam and I began to circle the cage, studying each other as if strangers. For the audience, we had to appear as real opponents ready to kill each other. For the surveillance cameras, as well. I made the first lunge, not too fast, not too strong. Liam easily evaded it as we had planned. Then came his attack, a series of quick strikes that I blocked, allowing only the last one through to make it look convincing. The blow landed on my shoulder, not coincidentally on the one that was already wounded. Pain flared with renewed intensity, but I suppressed a cry, only baring my teeth, showing the audience that the fight would be tough. We exchanged blows, gradually increasing the intensity. Blood from a cut eyebrow ran into my eyes. Liam's lips were also split. From the outside, it must have looked like we were fighting for life and death. "They don't believe it," Liam whispered when we clinched close. "The fight isn't brutal enough." I glanced briefly at Keller. He did indeed look displeased, saying something into a portable radio. Suddenly 2 guards brought Sophia onto the platform and placed a gun to her temple. "Esteemed audience," Keller announced, It seems our fighters don't fully grasp the seriousness of the situation. Let's add some motivation. If the fight doesn't intensify within the next minute, this beautiful lady will be the first to die. Sophia feigned fright, though I was certain this was part of the spectacle. Liam pushed me away and attacked with new fury. This time the blows were stronger, more precise. One particularly powerful hook caught me in the jaw, momentarily clouding my consciousness. I fell to my knees, and Liam immediately executed a hold, twisting my arm behind my back. "On the count of 3, he whispered. From the outside it looked like he was growling in my ear. I nodded almost imperceptibly. 1. I tensed, preparing for a lunge. 2. My eyes met Keller's beyond the cage. He was smiling, anticipating my pain. 3. Instead of breaking my arm, Liam abruptly released me and turned toward the nearest guard by the cage. I, losing no time, rushed to the opposite side where another guard stood. We attacked simultaneously, catching them off guard. Liam delivered a powerful kick between the bars, hitting a guard in the solar plexus. The man doubled over, and Liam wrenched the pistol from his hands. I was less successful. My guard managed to step back, but I still grabbed his arm and yanked him forward, smashing his head against the metal bars. Stunned, he dropped his weapon and I snatched it up. It all happened in a matter of seconds. The audience, not understanding what was going on, continued to applaud, thinking this was part of the show. Keller was the first to realize. His face contorted with rage, and he shouted into the radio, "Shoot to kill them both." At that moment the lights went out. The arena plunged into darkness, only emergency lamps dimly illuminating the chaos that engulfed the hall. People screamed, pushed, trying to find exits. "Dom," I whispered, realizing this was his doing. Liam ran to the cage door and shot the lock. The door swung open, and we burst free, holding our pistols at the ready. "We need to find an exit," Liam shouted over the noise of panic. "First Keller," I responded. "We can't leave him free." We made our way through the crowd, trying to stay in the shadows. The guards fired randomly, creating more noise than real threat. Panicking guests scattered in all directions, creating perfect cover. Still, we didn't manage to catch Keller off guard. When we reached the arena exit, his massive figure blocked our path. In one hand he held a pistol, in the other, Sophia, using her as a human shield. "How touching," he hissed. "Brothers reunited against a common enemy. Too bad your story ends here and now." "V. Drop the weapon, Keller," I said, aiming at his head. "It's over. Your guests are fleeing. The police are surely on their way." He laughed, still holding Sophia in front of him. "Police? In this town the police work for me, as do the judges and half the politicians." He pressed the gun barrel harder against Sophia's temple. "Drop your weapon or she dies." "Nothing personal, darling," he whispered to Sophia. "Just business." For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Sophia's eyes. She realized that Keller wasn't bluffing. Her usefulness to him had ended, and now she was merely a bargaining chip. I kept him in my sights, weighing options. Shoot. Risk Sophia's life. After everything she'd done, it would be easy to write her off. But I couldn't. Not that kind of person. "Let her go," I said. "Your problem is with me, not her." Keller grinned. "Always the noble Nate, even facing death, trying to save everyone. But you can't save her, your brother, and yourself all at once. Who will you choose, hero?" At that moment, Sophia made an unexpected move. She suddenly twisted and drove the heel of her shoe into Keller's foot, simultaneously elbowing him in the stomach. He cried out in pain and momentarily loosened his grip, which was enough. Sophia broke free and dove to the side. Keller, roaring with rage, aimed his pistol at her, but before he could fire, Liam tackled him from the side, knocking him down. The gun fell from Keller's hand, and he and Liam rolled across the floor in a desperate struggle. I wanted to help my brother, but at that moment one of the guards jumped me from behind. We fell, and my pistol skittered away. A brutal hand-to-hand combat began. The guard was strong, but I was fighting for my life, mine and my brother's. After several intense exchanges of blows, I managed to execute a hold and incapacitate him, stunning him with a blow to the temple. When I rose, breathing heavily, Liam had already gained the upper hand over Keller. My brother stood above his fallen adversary, pointing a gun at his head. A fire I had never seen before burned in Liam's eyes, thirst for revenge, desire to kill. "Liam," I called out, "don't, he's not worth it." "He made me kill, Nate," Liam's voice trembled. "Turned me into a monster, used me, betrayed me." Keller looked up at Liam, and there was no fear in his gaze, only cold calculation. He knew what he was doing. "Go ahead, boy," he hissed. "Prove you're really what I made you, a killer, a beast in human skin." Liam's finger tensed on the trigger. "Liam, no." I moved closer. "If you kill him, he wins. That's exactly what he wants, for you to become like him." Liam hesitated, his hand with the gun trembling slightly. "I already am like him," he whispered. "I killed people in this arena, you saw." "You've always been better than me," I said, taking another step toward him. "Kinder, more human. Don't let him take that from you." Suddenly, a loud voice boomed from the speakers. "Attention, everyone. The building is surrounded by police. Drop your weapons." I turned and saw Dom accompanied by a dozen police officers bursting through the main entrance. At that moment, Keller, taking advantage of the confusion, leaped up and lunged at Liam. They grappled again, and the gun fell from my brother's hand. I rushed toward them, but it was too late. Keller pulled a small knife from somewhere and swung at Liam. Seeing I wouldn't make it in time, I did the only thing I could, jumped between them, shielding my brother with my body. Pain pierced my shoulder as the blade sank into flesh. I cried out but managed to grab Keller's hand, preventing him from withdrawing the knife for another strike. Liam, seeing my blood, attacked Keller with renewed fury. In a vicious struggle, he managed to disarm the former Special Forces operative, wrenching his arm behind his back with such force that the sound of breaking bones was heard. Keller screamed in pain, but even now didn't surrender, trying to break free. Only when police officers surrounded him from all sides did he finally quieten, realizing his defeat. Dom ran up to us, helping restrain Keller until he was handcuffed. "Call an ambulance," he shouted, seeing blood streaming from my shoulder. I leaned against the wall, feeling strength leaving me. Liam knelt beside me, pressing some cloth to my wound to stop the bleeding. "Hang in there, Nate," he said, tears in his eyes. "Don't die, don't you dare die." "You wish," I managed a weak smile. "I'm too stubborn to die." The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was my brother's face bending over me, and a multitude of blue flashing lights filling the dark space of the arena. VI. The trial of Keller and Sophia took place 6 months later. I sat in the courtroom next to Liam, watching them try to justify themselves. Keller chose a strategy of complete denial, claiming he had no connection to the illegal fights. His expensive lawyers built a defense around the lack of direct evidence of his involvement in the deaths. Sophia acted differently. Dressed in a modest gray dress, without makeup, her hair gathered in a simple bun, she looked like a victim of circumstances. "I feared for my life," she said tearfully. "Keller threatened me, forced me to cooperate. I had no choice." But her performance crumbled when the prosecutor played the recording I had made that night in the cell. Keller promised me a share and a place beside him if I found him new fighters. Liam turned out to be a gold mine, a natural talent. Sophia's face froze when her own voice revealed the entire truth. She shot me a hate-filled glance, but I felt nothing but emptiness. This woman no longer held power over us. The evidence was supplemented by testimonies from dozens of witnesses, fighters who had survived, doctors who had treated injuries, even some guests who decided to cooperate with justice in exchange for immunity. The court sentenced Keller to 25 years in prison for organizing illegal fights that led to several participants' deaths. Sophia received 15 years as an accomplice. When the sentence was announced, she looked at Liam and me with undisguised hatred, but my brother merely shook his head. "You lost back then," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "when you decided you could destroy what brotherhood means." After the trial, life slowly began to improve. My wound healed, leaving another scar to add to the collection. It was harder for Liam. Inner wounds heal longer than physical ones. He underwent therapy, trying to reconcile with what he had done in the arena. Nightmares haunted him, as they had once haunted me. But we managed, together. A year after those events, Liam and I opened a legitimate fighting club in one of the troubled neighborhoods of the city. Nothing like Keller's gladiatorial fights. Here we taught children and teenagers self-defense, discipline, self-respect, and respect for others. Liam proved to be an excellent coach. He used his natural talent for good, channeling the energy of troubled youth in a constructive direction. "Strength isn't about causing pain," he told his students. "It's about protecting those weaker than you." In his free time from training, Liam slowly paid off the debts accumulated during years of gambling. It wasn't an easy task, but now he had my support, both financial and moral. That day, when we finished classes and the last student had gone home, Liam found an envelope on his desk. Inside was a notification of the completed divorce proceedings he had initiated while still in the hospital after the arena events. A short note was attached to the document. "You taught me an important lesson. The price of betrayal is always higher than the traitor thinks." Liam signed it in clear handwriting. "Finally free," he said, looking at the documents. I put my hand on his shoulder. "You've always been free, little brother. You just didn't know it." He smiled, not that fake smile I had seen from him in the arena, but a genuine one that reached his eyes. "You know," he said, putting the documents in a desk drawer, "sometimes I think Keller was right about one thing. Extreme situations do show who we really are." "And who are you?" I asked. "Your brother," he simply replied, "and that's enough." I didn't know what awaited us ahead. The ghosts of the past don't disappear with the wave of a magic wand, neither mine nor Liam's. Nightmares would return, guilt would gnaw in the darkest hours of night. But now we had an anchor in each other. And as long as we remained brothers not only by blood but in spirit, no Keller in the world could break us. I remembered the dark cell across from Liam's, our whispers through the bars, the escape plan, the desperate fight for life. All this seemed like a distant dream, a nightmare from which we had finally awakened. And somewhere in a maximum security prison, Sophia sat in her cell alone. Her beauty had faded, her ambitions shattered against cold walls. Perhaps she looked at an old photograph with Keller, remembering past dreams of power and wealth. Perhaps she cried, realizing the price of her betrayal. Or more likely, she was already planning how to use her new environment, new people for her benefit. But it no longer mattered. Her chapter in our story was closed. Ahead lay a life that Liam and I decided to live in our own way, helping others find the strength we had gained by going through hell. "Let's go home," Liam said, turning off the lights in the hall. "Lots of work tomorrow." I nodded, and we walked out together into the warm summer evening, leaving behind the shadows of the past and looking toward a future that, despite everything, promised to be bright. If you enjoyed this story, please support the author with a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your emotions in the comments. Thank you.